What's happening, guys? In my previous video we've discussed the Man in the Shadows in the Amazing Spider-Man 1 post-credits scene, as well as the fact that he's most likely a villain named the Gentleman, also known as Gustav Fierce, and how he is possibly connected to Peter's parents. Now today we'll talk more about Richard and Mary Parker's death and how Mark Webb's The Untold story might progress within future films. Now in future Peter will have to face 4 villains: Electro, Norman, Rhino and Gentleman. Electro wants to kill Spider-Man. Norman needs Spider-Man for his own reasons, such as Peter's blood sample, just like in Ultimate Spider-Man, so that he can cure himself, which eventually will result in his transformation into Green Goblin. Now Rhino is there just for fun. And then there's the Gentleman, who in my opinion is actually the main bad guy in Mark Webb's franchise. Now on the IMDb website, Jabbery Gray is listed as 747 co-pilot in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Boeing 747 is a wide-body commercial airplane, and that's the plane Richard and Mary Parker will be aboard of in the upcoming flashback scene. The fact that at some point in The Amazing Spider-Man 2 we will see a flashback scene of a plane crash is undeniable. I mean, first of all, in the first movie, while searching for some information about his father, Peter came across an article about his parents' death in a plane crash. Another thing, as you guys know by now, I've decided to avoid watching the leaked Comic-Con footage for my own reasons. But I do know the description of every single scene that was shown in the footage. So in the footage there was a brief scene inside plane's fuselage, and there was some sort of explosion inside of it. And later on there's a scene of a man punching another man with grey hair, who is most likely Richard Parker himself. So here's what's going to happen. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is most likely going to open with a flashback scene, just like the first movie. Actually, it will be a continuation of this scene with Richard and Mary Parker leaving Peter in the house. Now where they went after this? Personally, I'm sure they went straight to the airport. In the original comics, Richard and Mary Parker died in a plane accident while they were going to Switzerland. They were in rush due to the fact that Richard came up with some amazing discovery. Now since Mark Webb decided to bring Peter's parents into his franchise, I'm sure this mysterious discovery is related to Grass Species and Ascarp. Regardless, in order to protect Peter, Richard left him to May and Ben. Now in the original comics, Gentleman found out that Richard and Mary Parker were actually spies who worked for CIA. Interestingly, Richard was recruited by Nick Fury himself. Later on it was revealed that the Gentleman was responsible for Richard and Mary's death. He set up the plane crash and killed both of them. Years later, the Gentleman observed Peter growing up and becoming Spider-Man. He had a lot of interest in Peter, but eventually Peter found out the truth about his parents and managed to clear their names. Ironically, the Gentleman changed his mind and he wanted to kill Peter by forming his own version of the Sinister Six. In the Amazing Spider-Man 1 post-credit scene, the Gentleman asks Connors, "Did you tell the boy the truth?" Now he's obviously interested in Peter. Now besides Electro's storyline, the movie will focus around the Untold story about Peter's parents as well. I think we will see a plane crash scene in the beginning of the film. Later on during the movie, Peter finds out more information about his parents. Frank Deal is listed as FBI agent on the IMDb, and we've already seen him back in February in a Twitter picture from Mark Webb. Now, why would there be 2 FBI agents in a Spider-Man film? Personally, I think that FBI is still investigating the plane crash, and they will pay a visit to Peter's house, and probably that's what gives Peter more clues and motivation to find out the truth about his parents in future films. Finally, I think the post-credit scene in The Amazing Spider-Man 2 will feature Gentleman once again. We've seen Gentleman in the leaked footage, just a brief shot of a man wearing a hat, so most likely this is the credit scene after all. So there it goes, the Untold story in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. An opening scene with Peter's parents, Peter discovers more clues in the middle of the movie, and the credit scene with the Gentleman. Now the rest of the movie is obviously action, Electro, Rhino, Osborn's and Peter's relationship with Gwen. Anyway guys, here's a question. Do you think that the gentleman is somehow connected to Norman Osborn? If so, let me know about your theories. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.